What if this person or this individual is a realtor/pastor? Would they be guilty of hate speech for reading certain Bible verses? And the answer from the spokesperson at the National Association of Realtors was yes. They would be found guilty.
That is incredible.
Like if I read that passage in a church, if I'm standing behind a pulpit, and even if this stands right now, today, any person, not just a realtor, but any person in America could file a complaint against me for reading a passage of scripture which hurts their feelings or they feel offended. And that's particularly coming from the LGBTQ community.
Imagine for a second that you wrote something on Facebook just a few years ago. Probably not hard to imagine. Something you deeply believed in, right? All of a sudden, years later, it comes out and a trade association comes after you for it, for essentially hate speech. That's what is going on with our guest today, Wilson Thalber. And thank you very much for joining us today and kind of getting us through this whole scenario of what happened. Can you catch us up to speed?
Sure. It's a pleasure to be with you. And I really appreciate this opportunity because I believe it's a calling now and an assignment that I have to actually get this word out about religious persecution in the United States and how freedom of speech is being attacked. And it's throughout the country in so many different sources. And people are just not aware of how much this is occurring in America. And specifically in my case, this is happening because I have been a member of the National Association of Realtors for 45 years. I own my own business. It's an independent real estate company, small company, served my community well for 45 years. And much to my surprise, in 2023, after I decided to run for my local city council, it's in Stanton, Virginia, and it was one seat that was open. And all of a sudden, because I am a conservative Republican and I am a Christian and I am vocal about my faith, all of a sudden I started getting persecuted, and the people on the left really came after me very, very hard. And what they did in their effort to try to destroy my reputation and my business, they went back on my personal Facebook page to 2015, where I had reposted a post by Reverend Franklin Graham, who is the son of the famous Billy Graham. And during that period of time when they brought that to my attention, that's the dirt that they found on me, that I had reposted Leviticus 18:22, which speaks about a man sleeping with a man, and that is an abomination to God. And they decided that they were going to label me, and they told me that they were going to label me as the hater. And so that's where it began, because I ran for political office as a Republican, and I did not win the race in 2023. And my wife and I thought that this was over, that all this, the threats that were made against me and my family, all the negative things that were said, we thought that this would be over, only to find out a little over a year ago in 2024 that two local realtors that I had never met, never did business with, never communicated with, no emails, texts, nothing, they filed a complaint against me for hate speech through the National Association of Realtors.
Over a post that it's 2025 now, 10 years ago.
Yes. 10 years ago. And the interesting thing is, Izzy, is that when I posted that in February of 2015, there was no such policy or in the Code of Ethics against posting anything about religious freedom, Bible verses, and so forth. And so that was not adopted until 5.5 years later in November of 2020. And we know what happened in 2020. That's when the Biden-Harris regime, I call it, came into power, and they decided that they were going to come through the back door to achieve their goals and their objectives, and that is to persecute Christians and Republicans through the National Association of Realtors, which is the largest trade organization in America. And they were effective
in doing facto remove it or go after you for it.
Yes. So they went after me. These two realtors knew that this, it's called 10.5, or it's an article, 10.5 in the Code of Ethics, and it talks about harassing and speech and so forth. And the National Association of Realtors gave themselves the power to monitor all 1.5 million realtors 24/7 in your personal life. Even pastors. It was even discussed before it was adopted in November of 2020. It was discussed. Well, what if someone is a pastor and I'm an ordained minister? I have been involved in ministry for almost 50 years, and I have been pastoring for about, in some capacity, associate pastor, assistant pastor, or pastoring for about 47 years. And this was brought up. What if this person or this individual is a realtor / pastor? Would they be guilty of hate speech for reading certain Bible verses? And the answer from the spokesperson at the National Association of Realtors was yes. They would be found guilty.
That is incredible.
Like if I read that passage in a church, if I'm standing behind a pulpit, and even this stands right now, today, that any person, not just a realtor, but any person in America could file a complaint against me for reading a passage of scripture which hurts their feelings or they feel offended. And that's particularly coming from the LGBTQ community.
So when I first heard about what was going on with you, I immediately started thinking about the whole bake the cake situation.
Sure.
Which I'm sure you're well familiar with. And
very familiar.
Like, well, just, go with another association,
sure.
It's a free market. But the more I was reading about it, and this is what really caught my attention, and especially why I want you on here, is because of what I believe is called the MLS system. And I'm not involved with, real estate or anything like that, but my understanding of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is essentially it's an entire list of properties that are for sale. And
sure,
realtors use this to be able to operate their business. And from my understanding of people who are in real estate, it's a very necessary component to be able to conduct business.
Absolutely. It's the most important tool that we have. No client is going to want to list their property with a real estate agent unless they can give them massive exposure. I mean, they want to, almost every client. There are exceptions where they want it's somewhat of a private sale, but it's pretty much impossible to have a successful real estate business if you're not part of the MLS. The interesting part about it is the National Association of Realtors doesn't own necessarily, but controls the MLS systems throughout the country. There are a few exceptions, but it's in the high 90% range that the National Association of Realtors controls what happens with the MLS. In other words, to get access to the multiple listing service in my local market, I must become a member of my local realtor association. I must pay those dues. And then to become a member of the local association, I must also become a member of the state realtor association. And above that, I must become a paying member of the National Association of Realtors. And I agree, and every member agrees to abide by their code of ethics and their policies. And the National Association of Realtors says, if you don't like our policies, don't become a realtor. You don't have to be a realtor to sell real estate. That part is true. The catch is to get access to the multiple listing service, you must be a realtor. That's true in almost every location across the country. So they know that they've got us. We have to be in this tri-pyramid situation where local, state, and national membership, and they control you. And they have control and manipulate our speech right now 24/7. If we say something in the grocery store or behind a pulpit that they don't like, and they feel that someone in a protected class, which is identified by the Fair Housing Administration, then anyone can file a complaint and they can ruin your career. Anyone.
It's outrageous. That's absolutely outrageous. I mean, what about alternatives? I mean, are there any alternatives to the MLS system that is governed? I guess you can say it's not directly governed, but controlled by the National Association.
In some larger markets, I've spent a lot of time recently in Austin, Texas, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But in larger markets, they have some additional choices. There are some private MLS systems that are available. In my local market and in most markets across the United States, there aren't alternative choices. And so pretty much the National Association of Realtors has a monopoly, and the Department of Justice is looking into this right now about antitrust violations. And this has been brought up, and they're looking closely at it about possibly taking the National Association of Realtors to task because they're too big and they're controlling people's lives. They've become state actors, not just a private trade organization.
I was going to say Google and Apple had a similar situation where you had Apple controlling iMessage is essentially what it was. And Google essentially threatened. I don't think they went through with a lawsuit, not in the States. They did in Europe, but having that type of richer texting interface, and we're talking about something as simple as texting, not purchasing a home and where you're going to live and people's direct livelihoods is texting. And even then they knew the case was strong enough because it was such a strong business tool that they had to open it up and they had to make it accessible to third parties. And is that what you think the Justice Department is looking at here, is to allow a third party access to the MLS system?
Yes. And this antitrust violation, if it goes there, a lot of realtors would be able to join in a class action suit about that. It reminds me, I'm a little older than you, of Ma Bell and the Bell Telephone Company and how that got broken up. And, they were so huge and they could do whatever they wanted. And the National Association of Realtors is doing exactly that. They can set the policy and they enforce that. And then when someone like me, when a complaint is filed against me, they get to choose who the ethics hearing panel is going to be. I can object, but ultimately they're choosing who the hearing panel is going to be. They control all of that. So the fix is in.
Judge, jury, and executioner.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That's wild. That is absolutely wild. So what is the recourse? My understanding is you're trying to seek a remedy in this in court.
Right. So as I mentioned, I feel my assignment, I'm not currently pastoring. And when this happened last year, and I received an email telling me, not a certified letter about this ethics violation. It was an email that actually went to spam because I don't receive things from the Virginia Association of Realtors administrator who oversees this process. And I was devastated when I got that because I have been an excellent member of my community, serving my community. I love all people. I've actually served people in the LGBTQ community, and I've done that successfully. I don't hate anyone, and I serve all people. But when this happened, and it took me 3 days, and I really had to get alone with the Lord and get my emotions in check because it was really hurtful. That I could be accused of hate speech and discriminating against people when I've never done that. And so I felt very strongly that the Lord was leading me to go in a different direction with my ministry, and that is to expose this corruption and wickedness that's going on throughout the country. And I've been a proponent of free speech for a long time, but this took on a whole new meaning when it came to my door. And so I decided that even against the MLS rules because I should say the Code of Ethics. They also have an article in there, Article 14, that says that if you are part of a complaint, if someone's filed a complaint against you, or you're the one filing the complaint, you can't talk about it. Everything is done in secrecy. You can't talk about it. If you do, you have violated not only Article 10.5, but you've violated Article 14. And so I was actually found guilty on 2 different charges. Number 1, of hate speech, which I wasn't guilty of. And number 2, for talking to the media and even acknowledging that I was named in the complaint. It's crazy. There is you have no recourse. Realtors have no rights when it comes to this. I couldn't even defend myself, but I decided I was going to be the whistleblower and I was going to take this public. And God opened huge doors across America and still is, where I have been speaking out and exposing what is wrong. And this is terribly wrong in the National Association of Realtors. And because they are the largest trade organization in America, they have set a precedent. And it has held for the last 5 years. And other trade organizations and professional organizations have looked at this, and no doubt they have said, if the National Association of Realtors can do this, then we can too. If we don't like the speech of our employees or our trade members or those in our professional organizations and society, then we can punish them. If we don't like their political beliefs, we can punish them. And that's exactly what's been happening. And so I am fighting against this, and I will fight to the death and getting the speech out and my message.
Well, I'm glad that you're fighting for this, because it is ridiculous. And again, I do balance again that a private organization should be able to hold themselves in their own way, like a private group. I'm a free market capitalist, and so I believe in that. The market's going to provide. Right. However, in your case, like you said, this is such a large organization to where you almost have to have some type of involvement at this point. It's already an industry that's already regulated, so it makes sense that there would be some intervention with this. So I'm glad that you're stepping up and you're doing something about it. It's absolutely horrible. Creates a chilling effect. It creates a chilling effect.
And there are others.
I know of one guy in politics. We had this particular campaign. It was Denver Riggleman, actually, and in the 5th Congressional District. And of course, the controversy about that was he married 2 gay gentlemen who are friends of mine. They're awesome. And his concern was, because he was involved in the political side of this, that somebody would go after his association like they did to you, because of the controversy that was surrounding this and the politics that were surrounding this. And so it's bad when you're thinking about just regular political expression external to what your job and what you're doing, and thinking that your entire livelihood can be disappeared for, again, something that you strongly believe in.
Absolutely. And this has destroyed my career. I'm not getting calls. There's been some misinformation, of course. There's a lot of media coverage about my case and my story. And many of them did not contact me personally. Instead, they picked up on information that someone else had posted. So that story gets repeated because I'm still a licensed real estate broker. I still am a member of the National Association of Realtors, and I'm still a part of the MLS. Now, the sanctions and the punishment that was imposed upon me in December of 2024 and upheld in the appeal hearing in February of 2025, that's in effect right now. And I won't go into the details, but there is a date coming up where they will cut off my access to the multiple listing service for a period of time. And so this is part of the punishment. And it's just amazing that anyone hears this story, that any private trade organization who is also a nonprofit, the National Association of Realtors is a nonprofit.
Are they really?
Yes.
See, that bothers me. So they're not even paying taxes, and they have that much influence is ridiculous.
Right. They are a nonprofit and a private trade organization, and that they can wield this much power over the lives of the people. This is complete overreach. I mean, it's fine to have an ethics policy. And of course, the Fair Housing Administration has established that if we discriminate against anyone, there are serious consequences for that, as it should be. But the National Association of Realtors in 2020 went further than that in controlling our speech. And we live in the United States of America. And the representatives for the National Association of Realtors has just rudely and blatantly said, we are a private trade organization and we're not subject to the Constitution of the United States. That really bothers me. That they are not.
I mean, it's true. The First Amendment applies to the government directly. And so, I mean, that is a true statement.
It most certainly does. But to say, we have the right to police your speech, your social media, and what you talk about 24/7 because you're a realtor 24/7. Well, I'm also a Christian 24/7, and I have rights. And religion is also a protected class, just as it is for race, color, familial status, or sexual orientation. Religion is a protected class. And when my attorneys and I have brought that up, it's just been ignored.
And so that's part of the fair housing is religion.
Yes, it is. Religion is a protected class. So, but my religion has not been protected. I have been persecuted and prosecuted because of my personal beliefs.
That's wild. That's absolutely wild. Story. And then I think I read something about re-education. Is that true?
That's true.
What are they? So, all right. So how did that come on? What do they say about that?
Part of my punishment and that was levied against me is that I would have to go to ethics classes, which I'm up to date on all my continuing education. You have to renew your license every 2 years. But instead of them, where they oftentimes, if you're involved in a complaint, they will say you have to take another class and you can do that online. In my situation, no. In my situation, I am required to attend 2 in-person classes, and one of them is called Fair Haven, which is pro-LGBTQ. It's indoctrination to try to re-educate me, about turning away, is how my attorneys have framed it, to get me to turn away from my closely held faith and religious beliefs and to embrace the LGBTQ doctrine. And here's the story. I'm not going to do it.
Good for you.
I'm not taking either class.
Good for you.
Because if I did, I'd be admitting guilt. And I've had to pay out money already, but I'm not going to do it. I don't need to be re-educated. I'm fine, and I know that I'm on the right side of things, and I am not. I am not going to submit to their tyranny and what they're trying to do to people like me. There are others as well that have complied, and I could have complied, and I could have paid the fines, and I could have taken the classes, and it would all just go away if I was a good boy and I didn't do this anymore. But that's not the case. I'm fighting. I'm standing up for 1.5 million realtors and other people and professions and trade industries across the country. I am not afraid of the National Association of Realtors, the Virginia Realtors, or any other trade organization. I am going to speak up and tell the truth.
I do believe this also creates an opportunity where you and others can create your own organization and fill that need. I'm sure there are plenty of folks who would want to have a free speech based organization where you're focused on selling and purchasing properties as opposed to policing each other's speech.
Sure.
Has that taken root at all in any of this?
Yeah. Well, it's important to know I never have brought up my Christian faith when I was on a showing and working with someone. Where I'm in a small city, it's 25,000 people. and we have the county surrounding us, but a couple 100,000 people in our geographical area. And I'm well known in the community, and people know who I am. And that's typically why they choose me as a realtor, or they have in the past. And, but I've never brought up that my religious beliefs. I didn't bring it up during my campaign. It was the people who did the opposition research that went and found my post, and they introduced that into my campaign and made that the focal point of my campaign. But I didn't do that because there's a time and place for it. And so, I've been respectful of other people. I've worked with Hindus and people who are atheists, and I've even had people tell me, say, I know you're a Christian and that's why I chose you. I'm not. And some of them have said, I don't believe in God. And I said, that's no problem. We can work together. If you want to buy a house, you want to buy a piece of land, I'm your guy. I'm the professional, and I'll treat you just like I do anyone else. And I can separate the two, and many others can separate the two as well. And I've done that very, very effectively. But the National Association of Realtors wants every realtor to be of one mind. They want everyone to think alike and speak alike, and that's not possible.
So where do you go from here?
It's not right.
So where do you go from here? What's next?
So what's next? So my attorneys have drafted a lawsuit. We will soon be filing the lawsuit against the Virginia Realtors. It used to be the Virginia Association of Realtors. It's now called Virginia Realtors. They're named in the suit. Also named in the suit is the National Association of Realtors, because the Virginia Realtors are the ones that conducted the hearing and were the branch of the National Association of Realtors. Of course, the policy came from the National Association of Realtors, and it's a very bad policy that has hurt a lot of people across America. And I know of other realtors that have gone through something similar, and they've contacted me, and many of these people have become my friends. But it's very hard to find out who these people are because of this gag order that's in place, that you can't talk about any part of the hearing, or if you've been accused, or what the outcome was, or anything like that. So it's very difficult.
So not even the outcome.
No, not even the outcome. You can't even acknowledge that it exists. You can't say anything. And therefore, for the Article 14, yes, I violated that because I'm a whistleblower and I brought it to light. And I just testified in Texas on April 28th, I think it was, before the Senate committee in Texas, informing them of what's going on. And I just last week was at Austin, Texas again, and testified before the House of Representatives committee about what's going on. But for my personal story, I'm continuing to speak out, educating people, making them aware how freedom of speech and freedom of religious expression is under attack in America. We're filing the lawsuit. I have invitations across the country to come speak, and to with trade organizations and different churches and communities and things like that. So we'll see how that goes. We have to raise money. It's very expensive to travel. Next Tuesday, on June 3rd, I will be in Washington, D.C., and I hope to address the National Association of Realtors legislative meeting, which is actually going to be talking about this 10.5 article, and potential changes may be made to it. So I'm doing a lot of different things.
Oh, good. I appreciate your effort on that, and I'm standing up for folks who can't use their voice right now, and for fears that,
sure, a lot of people don't feel comfortable. They don't have the boldness to speak up, and lots of Christians, they're not as bold in their faith, but if they'll pray, God will give them the strength and the ability to do it. You have to be obedient to God, and this is really needed in this day and time because of the climate that we're in America, with LGBTQ agendas, and people hating Christians and people hating Republicans. We have to be bold and speak up. I'm not going out looking for fights, but I'm not going to back down from one either. And so others can do the same thing. They can speak up, and, they just need to be bold, and they may have to make a career change. If something doesn't happen with the National Association of Realtors about this policy, their career may be ended for them. I don't want someone to end my 45-year career. I want to choose to do that on my terms.
It's fair. Absolutely fair. And I understand it. All right, you get the last word. What would you like to leave everybody with?
I just encourage people to be bold in their faith and to stand up for what's right. So many people are afraid of controversy. They're afraid that their friends aren't going to like them, even family members. And I have family members that don't like me anymore. They may love me, but they don't like me, and they don't like what I have to say, because I'm defending the Word of God. I'm defending free speech. And so many people today feel that we have too much free speech, and they want to rein that in. And I say, no, we can't do that. We just celebrated Memorial Day, and so many lives have been lost in our country, laying down their lives so that we could have the freedom of speech and the freedoms that we enjoy in our lives. And we have to defend that. That's the right thing to do. And I encourage people to do the right thing. Don't be quiet. Speak up and share the truth. Try to do that in love and not out of anger, but to speak the truth. And you can accomplish some great things.
Sir, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.